Hey guys, this is White Dog 1. In this video, in my second video, I'm going to be talking about a game between Konstantin Landa and Kay Hansen played in Vienna 2004. This game was taken from the Complete Manual of Positional Chess, opening and middle game by Konstantin Decisive and Konstantin Landa. The purpose of this video is to show how weak moves in the opening such as unnecessary pawn moves can really set one side back and allow the other side to obtain a decisive advantage. So White started with e4, Black replied with c6, the Caracal defense, d4, d5, developing the knight, and then the first move, where Black starts to run into trouble, is b5. And the purpose of b5 is to, with the intent of chasing this knight away. But now Black has lost more time on an unnecessary pawn move. This move could have been delayed, and allows White to continue to gain space with e5. Develop the bishop, and it's just as soon as it's developed, it's chased away with g4. Retreating the bishop, h4 looking to trap, creating a retreat square, and bishop's pushed back. And so just right off the bat, we can see that White has more space on this king side, has lots of spaces for development here, and yeah, it looks like a pretty easy game so far for White. e6. And so with this move, it's actually sacrificing a pawn. But as you can see, now this black bishop is very, very bad. And it can't be developed, and it'll make castling kingside. If Black wanted to castle kingside, it'll make that very, very difficult. And so actually, taking isn't necessarily the best move for Black, because after takes, now this light squares around the king are vulnerable. So White will try to exploit those vulnerable white squares, and incidentally has more pieces to actually take advantage of those and to contest those squares. So game would continue something like this: e5, taking the bishop, and now this rook is just awkwardly placed. Black can't castle kingside. Castling queenside with all these pushed pawns doesn't seem like the most appealing move. And so then the game would continue: d takes e5, e6, attacking the rook, still contesting the light squares around the king, retreating, and all of Black's pieces are on the 8th rank. Again, White has pretty easy development from here on. White's exploiting these light squares around the king, and this is good for White. And we can stop here with this line. Still, Black's bishop is just terrible, because this knight is pinned down on the well, not pinned, but it's having to babysit on e7 so that it can at least try to fight for these white squares. So back to our game. White took on f7. King takes on f7, and this is just a very, very awkward position for Black, because not only can Black not castle, but Black's king's still in the center, and it's moving up the board. g5, looking to fork the king and the bishop. So the bishop moves out of the way, and now it's pinned. And so this pin actually becomes very, very important in this game. Trying to defend the bishop to d3, just adding more pressure to it. Queen to d7, trying to put his queen on the same diagonal as the bishop, and to support if the pawn captures the bishop, to support that diagonal. looking to bring this knight over to g3. Pawn takes, bishop recaptures, defending the bishop, and knight to g3. So this pinned bishop has quite a lot of pressure that's put on it. And black plays kind of just a careless move here, but it's with the intent of connecting the rooks. Knight to a6, white can castle. In this position, just black has two knights on the rim, very, very limited mobility. Yeah, it has connected rooks, but this bishop isn't very mobile. It can't retreat this way. It can't retreat at all because it's pinned. And even if it could, it only has one square to go to, unless it wanted to exchange. This bishop is decently placed, and this queen is, for the moment, tied down on this diagonal. Whereas white has very, very good development, finely placed pieces. This bishop can't really recapture, or can't capture this bishop here, because they would just lose a tempo to check. And so black plays bishop to f6. If bishop takes, then maybe black can fix his pawn structure and exploit this g file. But the bishop takes the knight. Bishop takes on h6. Bishop takes on e3 or d3. Excuse me. Bishop takes g7. And now rook recaptures on d3. Rook a to f8, aligning his rook with the white queen. White queen moves away with check. King retreats, f4. And so this move is, although white is still crushing in this position, is perhaps not the strongest move. A better continuation from white would have been, to move the knight to f4. And this is how the game could have gone. Knight c7, maybe trying to get this knight over to e8 to defend this bishop or something. And then, of course, the rooks are just forked. Nothing that black can do about him. Recapturing the knight, and then maybe white can go for some sort of pawn push here. Using this rook to control this h file. Maybe want to swing the rook over here, double up. But this would just be better for white. But that's not how the game went. So king to e7, improving the position of the knight, getting it off the rim. Just some maneuvering moves, putting some pressure on the knight on g5. Knight to d3 knight d to f3, defending the knight. Rook e8, fighting for this semi-open file. And then this is kind of just another dubious pawn move by black. c5, d takes c5, king takes c5, and this is just a very, very awkwardly placed king. And it's quite clear who's actually winning in this position. Knight to e5. This king's trying to run away. Check. King to b7. Rook h3, defending this h pawn, pass pawn. Improving the queen. And then bishop to e7. Very, very weak move by black, because now they're setting themselves in a perfect position to be forked by this powerful knight. Obviously, queen can't recapture because pawn's defending. So black moved the rook out of the way, rook to f5, and knight takes on e7, not knight takes on h8 or knight takes on e7, but rather, of course, those moves would still be winning for white, but rather, actually, knight takes on e6. And so actually black resigned in this position because he saw that the following continuation was coming. If knight tried to recapture on e6, then this rook is hanging, retreat the knight, bishop's hanging, to move the queen out of the way, attacking the queen, queen has to move again, and then knight simply captures on h8, and it's 2 rooks up for white with 2 passed pawns. There's basically no way that black can save this position. So my hope is that you learned the importance of really developing your pieces early on in the game. You learn from these mistakes. I see that I make these mistakes quite a bit actually in my own games, but all we can do is observe how to improve and try to implement those strategies. So with that being said, I'll see you in the next video, and wish you good luck in your chess.